A lot of people talking about Tiger King, but you know what I saw instead? Lion King. Way better, bigger animal. Hey, oh my gosh. It's you, it's me, it's us together. For what? Why? Why are we here? Story time with Uncle Scotty. Hello. This is my own mug. Thank you for joining Storytime with Uncle Scotty. I am so happy that you are here. I don't know if you can tell, am happy to be here as well. Thank you for everyone who's checking us out on Patreon. Appreciate that. Excited to send out some bookmarks and some mugs, and maybe tell some other little stories to some of you out there. But right now, most importantly, we're washing our hands. We're eating popcorn. It's not from the couch, it's from a bowl. And it's not from yesterday, it's today's popcorn. Because every day can be a day for popcorn if it's popcorn day. And today, I don't know if you know, it's popcorn day. Now, we have been reading Sideways Stories from Wayside School by Louis Sichar. And we've been learning about teachers and students at this school that was accidentally built sideways. All the students are up here on the 30th floor. They have to come in on the first floor, walk up to their classroom up here. We're learning about them one by one. Shall we proceed? Great. If you had said no, I don't know why we would still be here, and I want to be here. Chapter 5, Todd. All of the children in Mrs. Jewell's class, except Todd, were talking and carrying on. Todd was thinking. Todd always thought before he spoke. When he got an idea, his eyes lit up. Todd finished thinking and began to speak, but before he said 2 words, Mrs. Jewell called him. "Todd," she said, "you know better than to talk in class. You must learn to work quietly, like the other children." She wrote his name on the blackboard under the word discipline. Todd looked around in amazement. All the other children who had been talking and screaming and fighting only seconds earlier were now quietly working away in their notebooks. Todd scratched his head. A child was given 3 chances in Mrs. Jewell's class. The first time they did something wrong, Mrs. Jewell wrote their name on the blackboard under the word discipline. The second time they did something wrong, she put a check next to their name. And the third time they did something wrong, she circled their name. Todd reached into his desk and pulled out his workbook. He had only just started on it when he felt someone tap on his shoulder. It was Joy. "What page are you on?" Joy asked. "Page 4, Todd whispered. "I'm on page 11, said Joy. Todd didn't say anything. He didn't want to get into trouble. He just went back to work. 5 minutes later, Joy tapped him again. Todd ignored her. So Joy poked him in the back with her pencil. Todd pretended he didn't notice. Joy got up from her seat and sharpened her pencil. She came back and poked it in Todd's back. "What page are you on?" she asked. "Page 5, Todd answered. "Boy, you are dumb." "Don't use that word," said Joy. "I'm on page 29. "It isn't a race," Todd whispered. 5 minutes later, Joy pulled Todd's hair and didn't let go until he turned around. "What page are you on?" she demanded. "Page 6, Todd answered as quietly as he could. "I'm on page 200, Joy shouted. Todd was very angry. "Will you please let me do my work and stop bothering me?" Mrs. Jewell heard him. "Todd, what did I say about talking in class?" Todd scratched his head. Mrs. Jewell put a check next to Todd's name on the blackboard under the word discipline. Todd really tried to be good. He knew that if he talked one more time, Mrs. Jewell would circle his name. And then he'd have to go home early at 12 o'clock on the kindergarten bus, just as he had the day before and the day before that. In fact, there hadn't been a day since Mrs. Jewell took over the class that she didn't send Todd home early. She said she did it for his own good. The other children all went home at 2 o'clock. See, Todd wasn't really bad. He just always got caught. He really wanted to stay past 12 o'clock. He wanted to find out what the class did from 12 to 2. But it didn't look as though this was going to be his day. It was only 10:30. and he already had 2 strikes against him. He sealed his lips and went back to work. There was a knock on the door. Mrs. Jules opened it. 2 men stepped in wearing masks and holding guns.
Give us all your money,
they demanded. All I have is a nickel, said Mrs. Jules. I have a dime, said Mauricia. I have 13 cents, said Leslie. I have 4 cents, said Damon.
What kind of a bank is this?
Asked one of the robbers. It's not a bank, it's a school, said Todd. Can't you read?
No,
said the robbers. Neither can I, said Todd.
Do you mean we walked all the way up 30 flights of stairs for nothing?
Asked the robber.
Don't you have anything valuable?
Todd's eyes lit up. We sure do, he said. We have knowledge. He grabbed Joy's workbook and gave it to the robbers. Knowledge is much more valuable than money.
Thanks, kid,
said one of the robbers.
Maybe I'll give up being a criminal and become a scientist,
said the other. They left the room without hurting anybody. Now I don't have a workbook, complained Joy. Mrs. Jules gave her a new one. Joy had to start all the way back from the beginning. Hey, Joy, what page are you on? Said Todd. Page 1, Joy sighed. I'm on page 8, Todd said triumphantly. Mrs. Jules heard him. She circled his name. Todd had 3 strikes against him. At 12 o'clock, he left the room to go home early on the kindergarten bus. But this time when he left, he was like a star baseball player leaving the field. All the children stood up, clapped their hands, and whistled. Todd scratched his head. We'll do one more. Chapter 6. Bebe. Bebe. Let's have some water first. You know why? Hydration is important. Bebe was a girl with short brown hair, a little BB nose, totally tiny toes, and big brown eyes. Her full name was Bebe Gunn. She was the fastest draw in Mrs. Jules' class. She could draw a cat in less than 45 seconds, a dog in less than 30, and a flower in less than 8 seconds. Flower! But of course, Bebe never drew just one dog, one cat, or one flower. Art was from 12:30 to 1:30. Why, in that time, she could draw 50 cats, 100 flowers, 20 dogs, and several eggs or watermelons. I'm really good at drawing an egg. Nailed it. It took her the same amount of time to draw a watermelon as an egg. Calvin sat next to Bebe. He didn't think she was very good at art. Why, it took him the whole period just to draw one airplane. So instead, he just helped Bebe. He was Bebe's assistant. As soon as Bebe would finish one masterpiece, Calvin would take it from her and set down a clean sheet of paper. Whenever her crayon ran low, Calvin was ready with a new crayon. That way, Bebe didn't have to waste any of her time. And in return, Bebe would draw 5 or 6 airplanes for Calvin. It was 12:30, time for art. Bebe was ready. On her desk was a yellow sheet of construction paper. In her hand was a green crayon. Calvin was ready. He held a stack of paper and a box of crayons. Ready, Bebe, said Calvin. Ready, Calvin, said Bebe. Okay, said Mrs. Jules. Time for art. She had hardly finished her sentence. Time for art. When Bebe had already drawn a picture of a leaf. Calvin took it from her and put another piece of paper down. Red, called Bebe. Calvin handed Bebe a red crayon. Blue, called Bebe. He gave her a blue crayon. They were quite a pair. Their teamwork was remarkable. Bebe drew pictures as fast as Calvin could pick up the old paper and set down anew. A fish, an apple, 3 cherries, bing, bing, bing. At 1:30, Mrs. Jules announced, Okay, class, art is over. Bebe dropped her crayons and fell onto her desk. Calvin sighed and leaned back in his chair. He could hardly move. They had broken their old record. Bebe had drawn 378 pictures. They lay in a huge pile on Calvin's desk. Mrs. Jules walked by. Calvin, did you draw all these pictures? Calvin laughed. No, I can't draw. Bebe drew them all. Well, then, what did you draw? Asked Mrs. Jules. I didn't draw anything, said Calvin. Why not? Don't you like art? Mrs. Jules asked. I love art, said Calvin. That's why I didn't draw anything. Mrs. Jules did not understand. It would have taken me the whole period just to draw one picture, said Calvin. And Bebe would only have been able to draw 100 pictures. But with the two of us working together, she was able to draw 378 pictures. That's a lot more art. Bebe and Calvin shook hands. No, said Mrs. Jules. That isn't how you measure art. It isn't how many pictures you have, but how good the pictures are. Why, a person could spend his whole life just drawing one picture of a cat. In that time, I'm sure Bebe could draw 1,000,000 cats. 2,000,000, said Bebe. Mrs. Jules continued. But if that one picture is better than each of Bebe's 2,000,000, then that person has produced more art than Bebe. Bebe looked as if she was going to cry. She picked up all the pictures from Calvin's desk and threw them into the garbage. Then she ran from the room. I thought her pictures were good, said Calvin. He reached into the garbage pail and took out a crumpled up picture of an airplane. Bebe walked outside onto the playground. Louis, the yard teacher, spotted her. Where are you going? He asked. I'm going home to draw a picture of a cat, said Bebe. Will you bring it to school and show it to me tomorrow? Louis asked. Tomorrow? Laughed Bebe. By tomorrow, I doubt I'll even be finished with one whisker. I've been your host, Uncle Scotty. Don't forget to wash your hands. Everyone mugs. Check us out on Patreon. As always, enjoy popcorn if it is accessible to you. I do all the time. I will see you next time. Bye.